I think it's one of the very first big missteps by the Carney government.
All right, it's going to be a short video today, but we have Mark Carney speaking about the Air Canada strike. Before we get into that, a quick clip from CTV and Tom Mouclair about the situation, and it really is a great one. Welcome to the channel. If you are tired of this Liberal government, please hit that like button. And if you think Mark Carney is an absolute horrible Prime Minister, please consider subscribing.
All right, let's start with Air Canada. The union has refused to return to work as per the government's order. What do you make of this decision?
I think it's one of the very first big missteps by the Carney government. They blew this one. You have labor relations. That means that there are two sides, as in any relationship. But Minister Hajdu and the Carney government have weighed in so heavily on the side of Air Canada in this one that it's galling. The union raises the issue of the appearance of conflict of interest with the person who's now in charge of the Canada Industrial Relations Board, Maryse Tremblay, that you just referenced in that lead-up. Well, how is it even possible that we're debating that? She spent her career inside Air Canada representing them as a lawyer or as outside counsel. And now she's in charge of the Labour Relations Board. By the way, I'm not taking anything away from her in terms of her skills as a lawyer. But when you've got such an obvious appearance of conflict of interest, you deal with it immediately. Here you're trying to use that institution to force back to the table, go to binding arbitration, and they seem to have forgotten in the Liberal Party, they once knew, that labour rights are guaranteed under the Canadian Constitution. Mr. Carney spent the campaign, whenever he was asked about Bill 21, would you challenge Quebec's laws that are discriminatory to the Supreme Court? He had a very good answer, which is the Liberals are the party of the Charter of Rights. Well, guess what? The Charter of Rights protects labor relations. It protects the right to become a member of a union. It protects the right to negotiate and bargain collectively. And you can't take that away lightly, as the Carney government has just done. Now, it's the dead of summer. I'm not sure that Minister Hajdu has a lot of experience in these things, but they've created an unbelievable mess. And by the way, sometimes easy to finger wag and point at the unions. I know Mark Hancock, one of the union leaders from CUPE who was there. This guy is experienced. He's not a hothead. He had that gesture of tearing up the order, but I think he was trying to get a message across, because Mark Hancock is not somebody who does that lightly. And I think that the Canadian Union of Public Employees has a history, a trade, a fine track record of being able to work and overcome great difficulties. Here, the government seems to have set up a brush fire on its own, and it's very difficult to imagine how they're going to be able to get out of this one. If the union is saying, there's no way you're forcing us back, there's no way you're doing this, are they going to start coming up with outrageous threats of penalties? All this is going to be played out before the courts. By the way, Renee, this should have been thought out in advance. And there are some very smart people around Carney, but I guess a lot of them are on holidays right now, because this is one of the worst messes that I've seen them in since they got elected at the end of April.
Air Canada flight attendants are openly defying the government's back-to-work order, and it's a major showdown over workers' rights. This isn't just about wages or hours, it's about whether Ottawa can just force people back to work. The fact that these workers are standing their ground shows just how fed up they are with the government overreach.
Well, sir, anything to say to Air Canada union workers?
I'll say the following. We recognize very much the critical role that flight attendants play in keeping Canadians and their families safe as they travel, comfortable as they travel. And it's important that they're compensated equitably at all times, fairly at all times. That's the reason why there have been negotiations over the course of the last 8 months. It is disappointing that those negotiations did not come to an agreement, and it was the judgment of both the union and the company that they were at an impasse. That's not my judgment, it's their judgment. And so we are in a situation where literally hundreds of thousands of Canadians and visitors to our country are being disrupted by this action. I urge both parties to resolve this as quickly as possible, and the Minister will have more to say. Minister Hajdu will have more to say later.
Did the government make a mistake imposing binding arbitration on the weekend?
So people are missing flights and travels being disrupted, but sometimes that's a price for standing up for fair treatment. These flight attendants aren't trying to punish passengers. They're trying to send a message to Ottawa that workers can't just be ordered around. Inconvenience today might mean stronger rights and protections tomorrow. That's it for this one. I'll see you in the next one.